I do not think that the Ukraine crisis and India's position will jeopardize in any way the strength of the U.S.-India relationship. There's so much goodwill, there's so much trust, there's so much broad-based cooperation, there are so many convergent interests. There's a lot of insulation to withstand the reality that the U.S. and India have taken sharply different positions on Russia's actions in Ukraine. But I do think that the recent days have amplified just how much Russia is one of the rare geopolitical issues that does pose a bit of a tension point in the relationship. I think up to now, the Russia factor had been seen as an irritant in the relationship, particularly in regards to the S-400 deal, with the US not happy about India having acquired Russian military equipment. But now, the last few days, I think, have served as a wake-up call, certainly to both Washington and New Delhi, about how the Russia factor is not going to go away, and how the two sides, the US and India, are going to need to figure out a way to work around that. I do think where we could see an impact is in the issue of defense trade. India, of course, has already reduced its share of Russian arms imports in recent years, but I think that after this crisis, this conflict in Ukraine, and given India's refusal to criticize it to this point, I imagine that the US will come down really hard on India now and really press it hard to dramatically decrease its future arms imports from Russia. I also think that the US may now step back, at least momentarily, from any decision about whether to provide a waiver to India so that it escapes sanctions for having acquired the S-400 equipment. I still expect the Biden administration to eventually provide a waiver to India for the S-400 deal, but I imagine the US will use that as leverage and say to India, well, we're giving you this waiver. We're going to let you get away with this acquisition, but you really need to think about dramatically scaling down your future imports from Russia. And of course, that will put India in a difficult position, just because I understand that for India, a diversified set of sources of arms supplies is very important. And India will look to the US and to France and Israel, but also it will continue to want to look to Russia as a source of arms. And so I think it wouldn't be very reasonable to expect India to simply very quickly agree to do what the US is pressing it to do. So bottom line, the US-India relationship will be okay for sure, just because there's so much longstanding trust and goodwill and convergent interests. But I think on the issue of India's defense relationship with Russia, that certainly will come under the microscope a lot more in Washington, and could have some implications for the broader relationship in terms of recognizing the fact that Russia really can be a bit more than just a mere irritant in US-India ties.